Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from the Frontier. I hope the week's gone well. This photograph of lava flowing from the Philippines' most active volcano has spread out to 2.2 miles since it began intense eruptions more than 2 weeks ago. Of course, we've published Eric Solheim's Mindspeak, and in that he was comparing Africa with Asia. He says, what are the main reasons why Asian countries are taking off so fast? Strong visionary leadership matters, he said. And then I saw this from Laurence Shandy of UNICEF. What a striking chart. Note one, how much higher Africa stands in 1950 relative to Asia. How modest the gains from the 2000s during the Africa Rising era appear, and Asia's rapid and relentless advance since 2001, and Africa's sharp dropping off the pace since 2009. Macro thoughts go back to the 27th of November when I put my sell order out on Bitcoin. And I said, Bitcoin, wow, what a ride. And I was saying the move was turning parabolic. And I quoted Thomas Pynchon. It is a curve each of them feels unmistakably. It is the parabola. They must have guessed, once or twice guessed, and refused to believe that everything always collectively had been moving toward that purified shape latent in the sky, that shape of no surprise, no second chance, no return. Take a look at Much Parabolas. This is from A. Nondran, and that's what triggered that memory of that quotation about the parabola. Last trading at around 8,540. 2nd of January, I reiterated it. I said I'm no longer bullish Bitcoin. In fact, I'm bearish. And yesterday, Bitcoin slumped to its low for 2018, tumbling as far as 8,449. We're just clinging on a little bit higher. The virtual currency has lost more than half its value since December the 18th, when it peaked at 19,511. Mounting concerns of increased regulation and the viability of the biggest cryptocurrency, the virtual currency has lost more than half its value since December the 18th. This is another chart from Holger. Its 2018 low as concerns mounting regulation and viability. As I said and warned that I was no longer bullish Bitcoin, it's fallen below its 100-day moving average and also has lost more than half its value since its record high. Next support, the 200-day moving average, 6,187, according to Associated Press's Bob Sinjin. Ripple continuing the Burj Khalifa formation. This is from the stalwart. And then Feathercap replying to the stalwart, seems legit. In fact, Ripple was the one that I preferred this year, and that's now come down dramatically as well. I was saying short Bitcoin, long Ripple on a tactical basis. Breathtaking photos show the super blue blood moon around the world. This photograph is from Getty Images. And the sun and the moon sometimes argue over who will tuck me in at night. If you think I'm having more fun than anyone on this planet, you are absolutely correct. That's Hafiz. And it's been a glorious silvery moonlit night the last 2 nights here in Nairobi. Happy New Month. This is from N. Samila. Ancient tools found in India undermine the out of Africa hypothesis. Scientists have unveiled an extraordinary new analysis of thousands of stone tools found at a site called Atiranpakam in India, northwest of Chennai in Tamil Nadu. Thanks to new dating techniques, a team led by the archaeologist Shanti Papu determined that most of the tools are between 385,000 and 172,000 years old. What makes these dates noteworthy is that they append the idea that toolmaking was transformed in India after an influx of modern Homo sapiens came from Africa starting about 113,000 years ago. According to these findings, hominins in India were making tools that looked an awful lot like what people were making in Africa almost 250,000 years before they encountered modern humans. This is yet another piece of evidence that the out of Africa process was a lot messier, more complex than previously thought. This is a photograph of stone hand axes in Olagasai, which is another site close to a river, close to a lake, where a lot of tools have been discovered, not too far from here in Nairobi. McDonald's says it solved the industry's delivery problem of keeping fries hot. There we are, the world is okay, everything is fine. Kenya aerial photographs, this is from FC Morgan on Twitter, who photographs from Nikon, and really is a tremendous photographer. And another one as well. These are remarkable photographs. I think they're spectacular, most of them taken from an elevated point. And you therefore get a much better perspective on things like Lake Bogoria and a million flamingos that live there. Finally, push past your limits, Muhammad Ali. Political reflections, Theresa May is intolerable but unsackable, says The Economist, which was kind of the point I was making after my visit to the United Kingdom last month, when I said Prime Minister Theresa May has confounded naysayers and proves that longevity is a quality all of its own. American history shows that in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field, so long as good people stand up. Not a lot of schools or streets named for Joe McCarthy. That's Mr. Comey. All should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would, but take heart. American history shows that in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field so long as good people stand up. Not a lot of schools or streets named for Joe McCarthy. Michelle Obama says Melania Trump gave her a lovely frame on Inauguration Day. Came across this: for 3,000 years, the lion sculptures of Syria's Ain Dara stood as testaments to the Iron Age. But as the Turkish bombardment pounds the region, they will have little left but their paws. On that note, it took me to Ozymandias. I met a traveller from an antique land who said 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions red which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear: my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay. That colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Julian Assange tweeted Apple's census telegram in another example of App Store-fueled cultural imperialism. Control the App Store, control every company that uses the App Store, control the world, he says. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar is at 124.89, dollar index 88.73, Swiss franc, Japanese yen 109.80, Swiss franc 0.9268, the pound 142.59, last 142.55, the Australian dollar was at 0.80, 0.7996, India rupee 64.075, South Korean won 1078.89, the Rial 3.1669, the Egyptian pound 17.643, and the Rand, about which I have the strongest conviction, is at 1189.93. Jamie at Reuters is saying these are the loosest US financial conditions in over 40 years. Dollar index, this is a 3-month chart, with US bond yields breaking to the upside. I think the dollar index might not get to my 88 target. This move up in the German 10-year Bund yield is changing everything, David Inglis. Indeed it is, and that's why the euro dollar is so firm. Euro versus the dollar, take a look at this chart, which is shy of 125. Bond market pain reaches 30-year treasuries as yield breaches 3%. The benchmark 10-year US yield hurtled toward 2.8%, setting fresh highs since 2014, and the 30-year yield broke through 3% for the first time in 8 months. Goes back to something I wrote in September 2016, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. I said if volatility spikes, positions are going to be reduced en masse, or to put it another way and borrow the lyrics from the Eagles' Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. And she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the nightman, we are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Yardeni says the bond market has been rigged by central bankers for almost 10 years. Wild chart, Amazon, already one of the biggest companies on earth, is up a staggering 50% since its Q3 earnings report. Facebook rebounded 8.7% since people were panicking about Zuckerberg slowing down business. Let's move on to the commodity markets. This is from T Commodity, an alternative view on WTI crude oil, which is now, by the way, at $65.94. Goldman says Brent crude is to surpass $80, with the market likely balanced. US crude futures settled at $65.80, up 1.65% yesterday. Gold last trading at $1346.50. Bond markets really hating on this latest budget from India. Yields just went through the roof. That's David Inglis. John Aglenby, writing from Ethiopia. Mr. Moreira says a hungry nation can eat its leaders, and we have too many hungry mouths, too many hungry young people, and too many angry young people. 11 days after Ethiopian opposition leader Moreira Gudina was released following 2 years in prison, he used a political rally to ramp up pressure on the autocratic regime that freed him. We must not be satisfied until we have real democracy, he told thousands of his supporters in Ambo. He is the highest profile of more than 5,000 political prisoners released in Addis Ababa last month in an unprecedented move by the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. They represent, just on a tribal basis, just 6% of the population. Protests have continued despite the releases, with at least 20 people killed in demonstrations in the Amhara and Oromia regions in the past 2 weeks. Revolutions for change usually do not come according to a timetable. We want more of an evolution. But if the government is not responding, young people can react very violently, Mr. Moreira says. A hungry nation can eat its leaders, And we have too many hungry mouths, too many hungry young people, and too many angry young people. The change within the EPRDF in the last 6 months has been massive, says Beleta Molla, social sciences lecturer at Addis Ababa University. If the regime continues to not answer people's questions, we will enter the last and the ugliest chapter of the EPRDF. The protests will develop into an open confrontation. Mr. Beleta says that Wallo, which was largely peaceful for the past 3 years, turned violent, shows that things are becoming worse. If the government is to survive and the country is to survive as a unified state, it's going to take radical reform measures. Reforming the EPRDF will not be sufficient to solve our political problems. Mr. Ngarian says the EPRDF is highly united after a natural struggle last year to correct those individuals who were abusing their positions. But diplomats and analysts disagree, noting the repeated postponement of the EPRDF's Congress. The country is on this ticking clock, says one diplomat. No one knows how much time there is before it blows. I previously said that in October 2016 that the government needs to change tack and effect a course correction, and history shows us that this course correction is one of the most difficult things to pull off. Macron has only been president of France for 8 months, but he has made 6 visits to Africa in that time. By contrast, no British Prime Minister set foot in any part of Africa since 2013. In that same article, I'm not sure it's true, Japan now has more embassies in Africa than Britain. That was tweeted by Birdie Word, and I don't think it's true. Gambia's president says recovery is like carrying a mountain. It says taking over a bankrupt nation was like carrying a mountain, and that stabilizing the economy will take time after the former leader left it in tatters. If you don't stabilize your economy, you cannot succeed as a nation, he told AP at State House. The debt burden was very high, over 120% of GDP. He said, we are now edging towards 4 months into a recovery. Congo Electoral Commission finishes registering 46 million voters. It's an extraordinary achievement. SHELLEY is working to ensure the elections happen on December the 23rd. RDC Journée d'hommage à l'opposant historique Etienne Tshisekedi. A year after his death, they held a memorial service, but the point is, his body is still not on the continent. Congo, a country where the government and opposition leader Tshisekedi's family unable to reach agreement on the return of his body a year after he died. Yet we're meant to expect an election by the end of 2018. However, I saw another interview where Kabila said he's picked his successor. So maybe he has somebody in mind and he's now deciding to exit stage left. Maybe he will be the puppeteer. South African all share is down 0.41% this year. 18th of December, I asked, will it be 1994 all over again? I said South African asset prices will enter the sweetest of sweet spots. Global investors will surely buy the rand by the bucket load. And the rand has had its best 3-month run in almost 10 years as it rides a wave of optimism following Cyril Ramaphosa's election as the leader of the ANC. Nomura lost millions on margin loan tied to Steinhoff. 11th of December, I wrote about that as well. This man, Christo Visa, with a Midas touch. Steinhoff. Dollar Rand, looking for 11 and then 10. Be warned, what happened 7 or 8 years ago will not happen again in Egypt. Sisi reading the Riot Act. The Economists asks, another run for Baba goes slow? And saying the greatest asset Buhari has right now politically is the incompetence of the opposition. Which is a fair point. Nigerian all shares up 16.62% this year. However, it's been overtaken by the Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index, which is up 21.75% this year. There's a link to President Paul Kagame's Mindspeak session I like this from the solo wanderer. Visa on arrival. Process takes 15 minutes with your biometrics done at the airport on arrival. She's speaking about Mauritania. Tanzania GDP growth rate year on year is at 6.8%. Tanzanian president accuses judges of graft, seeks reforms. Says the judiciary needs to reform as he accused some judges and other law enforcement agency officials of being corrupt. A lot of them asked to go for holidays abroad, Magufuli said in the statement, commenting on judges who applied to him for leave. I know how much a judge's salary is, and to tell the truth, I look at where they go and the hotel they're staying at, how expensive it is. Mr. Chief Justice, follow up on this. That's an order. He says it. Last year I complained, he said. This year I will not complain. I will take action actually before the end of February. Magufuli, who came to power in 2015 and is nicknamed the Bulldozer, is finding popular support for his bids to tackle graft and challenge foreign companies like Barrick Gold for more revenue. Kenya, the State Department spokesman in the US, said we are gravely concerned about the situation in Kenya and the opposition leader's self-inauguration. We reject actions that undermine Kenya's constitution and the rule of law. Grievances regarding the October 26th election must be resolved through appropriate legal mechanisms. That is picked up by the VA, Voice of America. Odinga took the oath of president in a mock inauguration on January 30, a symbolic move in defiance of last year's controversial election and authorities. Government responded to Tuesday's mock inauguration by declaring the opposition movement a criminal organization and ordering the TV stations to stop broadcasting. In a statement, the State Department recognized Uhuru Kenyatta as Kenya's president-elect, while expressing deep concern about action by Kenyatta's government to shut down, intimidate, and restrict the media. Uhuru Kenyatta was elected as President of the Republic of Kenya on October the 26th in a poll that was upheld by Kenya's Supreme Court, the State Department spokesman said. Grievances must be resolved through appropriate legal mechanisms, she added. Odinga told reporters that democracy in Kenya was under serious attack and called the country's ruling party certainly mad. The New York Times, as Kenya takes Orwellian turn, government goes after journalists. Sitting in his office, Linus Kaikai ate peanuts and tried to decide how best to be arrested by the police officers he thought were lurking outside the newsroom. What are the chances they'll storm the place? Mr. Kaikai, who leads the newsroom at Nation Television, asked a room full of allies, lawyers, fellow journalists and activists. It was late Wednesday night on a Orwellian storm had whipped across Kenya's capital. Mr. Kaikai was caught in it. Hours earlier, he and two NTV colleagues, anchors Ken Mijungugu and Larry Madowo, were tipped by their police sources that officers were heading to the newsroom to arrest all three. Mr. Kenyatta got involved personally last week, raising the pressure not on his political rivals but on the news media. He summoned the owners of Kenya's major broadcasters to his residence and warned them not to cover Mr. Odinga's ceremony. Hannington Gaya, the chairman of the Media Owners Association of Kenya, described the encounter as a dressing down and told Mr. Kaikai that the group had been read the Riot Act. Kaikai, who's chairman of Kenya's Editors Guild, denounced the president's warning as a brazen threat and wrote a scathing public letter against media intimidation. Tensions only worsened as the day went on. The government declared part of the opposition coalition an organized criminal gang. As the evening wore on, Mr. Kaikai's colleagues took care of whatever details they could. One brought him a toothbrush, another a blanket. The place was full of food. They asked me what I want for my last supper, he joked, and he signed papers in triplicate meant to expedite his bail. Look, they're not about law and processes, he said. These are not law enforcers, they're political henchmen. That night, Mr. Madowo took refuge in his studio, laying a Maasai cloth beneath the desk that holds his soundboard. Who knew a production studio could have so many uses, he said. The Last Supper is a late 15th century mural painting by Leonardo da Vinci, which I've actually seen. The affected media houses are said to take a heavy financial hit in lost advertising revenues, estimated at 30 million shillings a day, according to Ipsos Synovate. 4 stations affected: Citizen TV, Indora TV, NTV and KTN News account for more than 90% of local TV viewership. Nation Media closed unchanged yesterday. It's down 11.06% so far this year. Broadcasting NTV Kenya revenue was up 18% at the half-year mark as the general elections edged closer. But obviously that's now being hit. Standard Group is down 1.53% year to date, and it's a considerably smaller business. Nation is valued at $194 million, Standard at 26. AP Africa breaking: Kenya's High Court orders government to end shutdown of top TV stations over mock inauguration. Charles Hornsby has published his detailed analysis of NASA's figures, claiming that Raila won in August. He concludes the IEBC may not be telling the truth, but NASA is definitely lying. Kenya shilling touched 101.845 against the dollar, which was a level last seen in November 2016. Nairobi all shares up 6.06%, and less than 0.5% of a record. NSE 20 is up 1.09% year to date. Once again, thank you for stopping by. Wishing you a great weekend.